Yes, I hope I'm audible to all of you. Uh, we will begin with our session for the essential tips for the GATE AR exam that is happening tomorrow. Now, starting with how should one attempt the paper or what should be the mindset? So, I'm sure all of you all must have heard about how you should read the test carefully and so on and so forth. But today we will be majorly discussing about some strategy or some tips on how to tackle the paper and how to deal with certain kind of questions. So I'm sure you all must have heard this a lot that, read the questions carefully, read the test carefully, or decide which questions you want to tackle first. Take your time, don't rush, so on and so forth, or double check your answers. All of these is something that we have heard many times before. But what we will be discussing is the techniques that you can use, how to tackle the paper, where can you take a risk while solving the paper, and if there are some questions which you feel that are difficult or certain questions where you might panic right after reading a question or just seeing the question. So how to stay calm or what is basically the idea of such questions, we will look at that also. So as far as the techniques is concerned, one of the most important techniques that you can use is the elimination method for solving your questions. So if you see in elimination technique, you can solve this via two aspects. That is one on the basis of your common sense and the other on the basis of knowledge that you have. So we will just look at a few questions which can be solved on the basis of common sense or a few which can be solved on the basis of knowledge and where you can implement this elimination technique as well. So if you see this question that on the screen, right, it says the Venice Charter led to the establishment of what? And you have four options. One is ICOROM, the other one is ICOMOS, third one is intact, and fourth one is ASI as the option. Now, just take for example that you do not know anything about this question or you have a very basic idea that, okay, this Venice Charter is something to do with conservation for sure. But if you use little bit of common sense, you can easily eliminate two options in this case. Now, if you read the name, the Venice Charter, this we know Venice is a place which is not in India, it's outside India. So of course it has to do something with uh, an international organization or an international event. And if you read these options, right, so the first one says that it is ICOROM, that is the International Center for Study of Preservation and Restoration of Cultural Property. Second one is ICOMOS, International Council on Monuments and Site. Third option is your intact, that is Indian National Trust for Art and Cultural Heritage. Now, what logic had we put that Venice Charter is something to do with intact? Venice Charter is something to do with your international organization. So can I safely eliminate this option? Yes, I can. Now moving on to the fourth option, that is ASI or the Archaeological Survey of India. Now we know ASI is an institution working within India. So again, this will not be very much related to Venice Charter if you see. So you can this way eliminate this option as well. That way you have a 50% probability of getting one of the correct answers. So here you are eliminating or you're increasing your chances by 50% to get a correct answer by using little common sense. Now we'll see another question where again you can use some common sense and eliminate one option. So in this case, you have the question says that excellence in design for greater efficiency edge program does not focus on. Now, one important thing is that you have to read the question carefully. So here the options are given as low carbon emission, greater resource efficiency, cost effectiveness, and labor safety. Now, if you see, edge is something to do with, okay, let us say, assume that you do not know anything about edge or what does it do. But if you read this sentence carefully, it is something related to increasing efficiency, correct? That is a basic thing that you can understand from the question. Now, if you read these options carefully, low carbon emission is again something related to your green buildings or environment where you are uh, trying to give a better output. So, somewhere related to efficiency. In option B, again, it is directly talking about efficiency. Again, cost effectiveness is also something related to efficiency where you are trying to give maximum output with minimum input or minimum cost. And last option, if you see, labor safety, this something does not relate to efficiency if you use little common sense, right? So relating labor safety and efficiency, this by logic somewhere seems difficult. So that way you can safely say that answer D would be the correct one. So if you see, actually Edge is basically a free software for green building standards and an international green building certification system. So here we just saw how you can use little bit of common sense and eliminate answers and derive a correct answer in case where you might find it difficult. Another part where you can again use the elimination technique. Now, all these questions that I'm discussing are from your previous year gate papers. So here, again, for your match the following, your elimination technique is very, very helpful. Now, this question is on the basis of your knowledge. So if you see, you can use your knowledge to eliminate the options in this case. So here, the question asks us about the hierarchy of road pattern in Chandigarh. Now they've mentioned about V1, V2, V3, V4. Now, as students of architecture or planning, we know that V7 is related to your footpaths and pedestrian networks, correct? Now, this, as students of architecture, we very well know this. Now, if you read the options in group 2 carefully, it talks about sector connector, cross country building or sector divider and pedestrian connection. Now, I know for sure that pedestrian connection has to do with V7. So, but here there is no V7 given. So what can I do? A little bit of reverse engineering and look at the answer key or the options given. Here in this case, I can eliminate all the options safely where option 5 is given, correct? So can I eliminate A? Okay, 5 is not given here, so I will keep this. In this option B, 5 is given, R is 5, so we can eliminate this. So this will not be our answer. In option C, again, R is 5. We can eliminate this answer. Option D also, S is given as 5. We can eliminate this answer and come to the correct answer, that will be A in this case. So again, we've just seen how you can use little bit of common sense and your knowledge and implement the elimination technique. Now, these techniques will primarily help you to boost your score by 1 to 3 marks, which will again have a great impact on the rank also. So moving on to the next part as to how to tackle the paper. Now, one of the most efficient methods of tackling the paper is the 3210E method or the 150 33 25% method. So what is basically this method or what can be done? So in this, you can basically solve the paper in 3 to 4 rounds. So in the first round, you can simply go and answer all the questions where you are 100% sure of the answer, and leave the other answers where you are maybe 50% sure or not sure. So you can leave those and just go and tick all the answers where you are 100% sure of the correct answer. Then move on to the next set of questions where you are not sure between two options and you have eliminated two options. So these kind of questions you can solve in the second round. In the third round, maybe you had only eliminated one option while going through the entire paper once. So in the third round, you can attempt those where you have eliminated only one option. And in the fourth round, you can then, after once you are done with all these questions, then you can move to the questions where you do not have a major idea about the questions or about the options. You have no clue. And if you have time, then you can go through this. Now I will just share my screen, stop this sharing and share another screen, and we'll just have a quick demo of that also and how to do that. Just give me a minute. Okay. Can you see my screen? Can somebody just confirm? Yes. So I hope my screen is visible where you can see the test screen, right? So I will just be giving a quick demo with respect to the 2017 previous year GATE question paper. We'll just solve around 10 to 15 questions and see how this elimination or the tackling method can be implemented here. The 3210 method can be implemented here. Now let us say the first question, the Pritzker Prize for the year 2016 has been awarded to. Now this is a question where, let's say you are not sure about the answer, you have no clue about this. So you can leave this safely and move on to the next one. Now, in the second question, it says that as per CPWD handbook on barrier free and accessibility 2014 Government of India, the minimum length of a straight ramp in meter to raise a wheelchair to the plinth level of 600 mm is. So now if you know by as per the standards, the ratio or the ramp slope should be 1:12 minimum, right? And for, let's say they've given that for a plinth of 600 mm. So if you just do the basic calculation, this answer should come up to 7.2, right? That is the length, minimum length shall be 7.2 meters. So here in this case, I know I'm very sure of this answer. So I can attempt this and move on to the next one. Now in Tuscan and composite orders are associated with which? Now you have options like Greek, Islamic, Byzantine, and Roman architecture. Now in this case, let us assume you know that it's definitely not Islamic or Byzantine, and you're confused between Roman and Greek. So in this case, you can leave it for mark. You can mark it for review and come to it later on, right? So here, if you can see on the right side of my screen, as per the colors as well, the colors will let you know that which question you've answered, you've not answered, and so on. And this will be very helpful for you in coming back to these questions later on. Now moving on to the fourth question. Let us say that a pointed arch having two centers and radii greater than the span is known as. Now I know this answer, which is lancet arch. So I will mark this one and move on to the next one. Now let us assume for serial vision concept, in the fifth question, the serial vision, punctuation, and closure were proposed by who? So you have Lee Corbusier, Louis Kahn, Gordon Cullen, and Kevin Lynch. Now, for example, let us say I'm confused between Gordon Cullen, Kevin Lynch. I can mark this for review. Come back later. Don't waste time on any of the questions if you don't know. Okay, in 1 liter of paint, volume of solid pigment, volume of non-volatile binder is 400 cc and 600 cc respectively. The pigment volume, concentration, number of the paint is. Now, I have no clue about this, and so I would not like to waste much time on this, and I will come back to it later. So moving on to the next one. Okay, here the question says cold joint refers to expansion joint in large span concrete members, interface between already setting concrete and fresh batch of concrete, structural crack arrested for embedding metal rods, and joining of two similar metals in vacuum. Now, I am very sure that cold joint is something related to concrete. So I can eliminate C and D, but I'm not sure between option A and B. Let us assume. Again, mark this one. Move to the next one. Now, slenderness ratio of a column is represented as. So I know this, that it is either effective length by radius of gyration or actual length by radius of gyration. So let us go for, okay, let us assume that it is, I'm sure, and that's the correct one. Moving to the next. Now, liquidated damage refers to what? So if you see, just go through these options. I know that, okay, it is compensation paid on breach of contract. So I can click on B, and I'm sure about this answer, so I'll move on to the next one. Now coming to question 10. Here it is asking about which of the following is not used for corrosion resistance of cast iron. So I know painting helps in resisting corrosion. Epoxy coating also helps. Quenching, never heard of it with respect to your corrosion. Galvanizing also does. So I can click on this. Now, if you see on the right side of the screen, over here, you have a few questions which are in green, which were my 100% options I knew were correct. Then you have some in red and the others in purple. So these, the ones in green are your 100% sure shot ones. So don't go to them. Now, in the second round, what we were talking about, you can move to these ones which you had marked for review. So maybe you'll go to the third one. And in this case, we had marked it for review. So you were confused. You had eliminated 50% options and you were left with the other 50. So you knew about Greek, you were confused between Greek and Roman, right? So here you can spend a minute or two thinking about it. Maybe let's say mark the answer. Then you can move on to the next one. Now on the screen, this is the exact interface what you will have for the GATE exam. So on the screen, you can directly skip and move to the fifth question you had marked. So again, in this case also, we were confused between Gordon Cullen and Kevin Lynch. So let's say it is Gordon Cullen, and you mark and move on to the next question. Now again, in this question as well, we were confused between cold joint for between option A and B, right? So here again, basically these questions which you mark for reviewing, you can utilize the time, think over it, because here there are 50% chances of getting a correct answer, right? So let's say you mark this one. Now you've done your second round. Now you can move on to your third and fourth round, right? So now in this case, again, in the third and fourth round also, which one should I attempt first, a MCQ or a numerical question or MSQ? So again, since your numerical does not have negative marking, it is better to go and try and solve it first, and then move on to the last one where it is a MCQ question and you are not very sure about what the answer is. So now if you see this question, it's a very factual question. In this, you either know the answer or don't know. So for example, if you do not know the answer, don't try to just attempt it for the sake of it. You can leave it that way as well. So I hope that tackling of the questions, or in what rounds you can solve the question, I hope that is clear for all of you. Now I'll just stop this sharing and go back to the PPT. Okay. So we've just seen how you can attempt your paper in 3 rounds of your round 1 of 100% sure short questions, round 2 of 50% sure short questions, round 3 where you know you've eliminated only one option, and round 4 as the last one where you do not have much of an idea. Now, with respect to where can you take the risk of attempting a question where probably you do not have much of an idea as well as to what could be the answer. So if you just see the structure pattern of the exam or the kind of questions, you have a multiple choice questions wherein, let's say for this as an example for the question, where only one is going to be the correct answer. Here, not more than one will be the correct answer, only one can be the correct answer. So in this case, let us say who is organizing GATE 2023. So it is IIT Kanpur. So in this case, in these multiple choice questions, if it is a 1 mark question and you give a wrong response or a wrong answer, there will be 1/3 negative marking. And for a 2 mark MCQ question, there will be 2/3 negative marking for a wrong response. And as far as the next category of questions, that is multiple select questions. So in this case, here you have more than one option as the correct answer. So taking an example of this question here, which of the following is our states in India? So we know Maharashtra is a state, Gujarat is a state, Mumbai is not, and Goa is. So in this case, A, B, and D will be the correct answer. So again, for these multiple select question, there is no negative marking for a wrong answer. Okay. However, you will also not get any partial marks. So for example, had I marked only Maharashtra and Gujarat and not marked Goa, I will still get 0 marks. I will get the complete 1 mark or 2 marks for how many ever marks the question is. I will get the full marks only when I mark all 3 options, right? So for MSQ, there is no negative marking. And the same for your NAT or the numerical answer type question, where you have to do calculations and give the answer. So in this type of questions also, there is no negative marking. So if you see, by little logic, it is these questions, that is your MSQ and NET, where you can take the risk, where in case if you are not sure about the answer, you can still take a chance because there is no negative marking. Let's say there are some questions, maybe you've eliminated one option for an MSQ. It is better to take that risk, right? Because you have nothing to lose in that case. And the same goes for NAT. However, do not do the same thing for a MCQ question, because in the end, you will end up reducing your marks by probably marking a wrong one and getting some negative marks. So for these two, you can definitely take that risk. Okay. And the last part, that is staying calm. Now, probably there could be some questions where, let's say, for example, like this one, it's a big question, lot of text, but you can probably panic just looking at this. Oh, it's, as a human, when you see a larger amount of text, right? Probably looking at it in the first glance, you may feel that, oh, it's a very lengthy question, must be difficult. However, if you read it very carefully, it's a very easy question, and that too for 2 marks, right? So here they're talking something related to conservation in this question. So if you see this here, it's very easy, and basically in case of questions which you probably might find difficult looking at it in the first glance, do not panic. You have to stay calm and read it thoroughly. Give it some time, read it calmly, and then attempt it. Now, for example, if you just take this question, here what is expected from you is select one appropriate word from these given options, which will fill in all the blanks. Now, if you see, the first point is what the aim of conservation is to retain or recover the dash of a place. So it could be historical significance, cultural significance, architectural, or aesthetic. Now, little bit related to conservation, aesthetic would not be a priority. Architectural also in front of conservation, or let's say in the with respect to historical, architectural will also probably not be much of a priority. So it is either historical or cultural, right? So that way we've eliminated two options as well. Now, if you just read all these remaining three sentences, it talks about preservation, restoration, reconstruction. So all these factors are more or less related to a historical structure, right? So that way, if you see, though it might look like a very, very lengthy question, but it's a very easy question. Or probably there could be some question where you do not know the answer to it at all, or probably there could be some question where you've read it and you've read it while you're studying or while you were, let's say, preparing for your exam, but you do not remember it, right? And a question comes in front of you. You can just go through it maybe for that moment, or leave it for that moment, come back to it later and calmly attempt it. So that is what will help you. So that is all from our side, and we wish you all the best for your tomorrow's exam. Thank you.